Hail, fellows, and welcome to Pen Night Radio, where we slay our personal demons and arm ourselves to write great fiction. I am your host, PK, unofficially knighted by a fictional character, which means you do not have to call me sir. For our purposes, Alec or PK will do just fine. Let's dive into why we're here. Let's take our pens out and slay our demons that are dragging us down tonight. Oh man, did I butcher that? Let's take out our pens and slay the demons that are dragging us down today. Then we write. Pen Night Radio is brought to you by One True Promotion, an alliance of authors dedicated to promoting the indie community. Our topic to open season 2 is one of grave importance, and that's killing off your characters. So, George R. R. Martin gave an interview once about how much he adored The Lord of the Rings and how it was the inspiration for his own smash hit, the Song of Ice and Fire series, or, as you probably know it, the HBO smash hit Game of Thrones. The interviewer asked him what question he would ask J.R.R. Tolkien if Tolkien were still alive. Martin's answer: "Why'd you bring back Gandalf?" So, for those of you who may not know, George R. R. Martin is notorious for killing off characters in his Ice and Fire series. The series opened on 3 men of the Night's Watch being brutally slaughtered by others in the cold, icy north, and continued with the Stark family discovering a stag's antler lodged in the hide of a mother direwolf. This bit of symbolism delivered on all of its promises. Several lead characters, the ones that you usually see standing humbled but victorious at the end of a fantasy adventure, were coldly dispatched and amid laughter and mockery from our antagonists, while wars raged on that only claimed the lives of more and more beloved characters. It got to a point where people just coming into the hit fantasy series were advised, if you have a favorite character, don't get too attached to them. So, you might be thinking right now that killing off characters is just par for the course, but to be honest with you, it's hard. I would like to thank my team at One True Promotion. Andrew, the co founder and chief operating officer, is the author of Sanguinary Song, a supernatural first in a series of magical YA novels featuring a young witch and her quest to stop a burning cataclysm as she attempts to outrun her past. Nicholas Georgel, the arts and media director, is the author of The Death of Earth, a book all about Daichi Hara, a boy in Japan who is turned into a death, who has to kill a certain quota of people per month if he himself does not wish to die. Brielle Elise is a poet and author of The Little Brown Book and Shadows on the Moon. Brielle's work touches upon the little universes in every piece of art, no matter what form it takes. If those sound interesting, please look them up on Amazon. We here at Pen Night Radio would be most grateful for your support. And let's not forget Cameron Cascade Coates, the cover designer for The Children of Arc. If you want to see more of his amazing work, please look him up on Instagram at cameron.s.k.coates, or go on Amazon and type the Calipar to see the amazing work he did on the first volume, The Children of Arc. And also, Andrew Bass has recently published a new hit novel in the indie market known as Dirge of the Trinity. It is the sequel to The Sanguinary Song, continuing that supernatural first with a heartfelt adventure into myth, dark magic, and devastatingly raised stakes for every character. Dirge of the Trinity is a must read to the bitter end. Now back to the topic at hand. I suck at killing off characters. There, I said it. This has been one of my greatest passions since I was so moved by the powerful death scenes in The Lion King, Harry Potter, various anime shows. It's just something that I thought I would always be good at. But it turns out that 2 of the biggest death scenes I drafted in these last 6 years of publishing have both been rewritten to either save those characters or keep them around for a stronger exit. Wow. I mean, how did I get there? Well, folks, I want to share with you a bit of what I've learned and how it guides my principles for killing off characters. We'll start right at the top with lesson 1, which is also principle number 1. A character's death has to be meaningful. So, going back to Martin, the Ice and Fire books and the Game of Thrones TV adaptation are very similar in some ways, yet drastically different in other ways. It was around season 5 that the show started to drift away from following the books, and George R. R. Martin gradually left the process of making the show. When that happened, I saw a discomforting pattern begin. See, Game of Thrones killed a lot of characters when they were following Martin's books, but never without purpose. The death of Ned Stark is the culmination of a dramatic political investigation in which he comes out having learned too much, and the death itself triggers the escalation of the War of the Five Kings, which leads to all the drama in the next two books. The characters who die in those books are casualties of the war, usually due to their own poor decision making, which reduces the number of players on the field and brings us closer and closer to the climax of these epic events. I could go on. Deaths in Ice and Fire were numerous, but always built up to and always with a larger purpose in mind. But in season 6 of the TV show, characters just started dropping. They just started dropping off. It seemed to me like they were getting close to the end and they just wanted to thin out the cast. There was less buildup and no consequences. A great example is the death of Prince Duran, a character who's still alive in the books today. He was killed by his brother's mistress, who took over his region, joined Daenerys Targaryen's army, until their garrison was overwhelmed and destroyed by Balon Greyjoy and Cersei Lannister. Just like that, all the scenes we just watched were tossed in the garbage bin. There were no consequences, no long-term consequences to killing off Duran. It was like the showrunners literally just had no further use for the guy. And while this might not seem like a very big difference, it is a big difference to me. Martin himself talked about the death of Gandalf the Grey in Lord of the Rings. Gandalf was the Fellowship of the Ring's guide to Mordor. They all followed him, even Aragorn, who would later become king. They trusted and relied on Gandalf, and when he died, it not only hurt them personally, but it weakened the Fellowship. This was a death that Martin really felt in his core. It inspired him that removing just one crucially important character from the equation can greatly alter a story's trajectory, can raise the stakes, impact the characters in a very deep and profound way that you've got to address at the end of the story. Frodo's whole ending is about how he really just can't put aside the heartache and trauma of the ring until he sails to the Green Lands. Forget what they're called. Undying Lands, maybe. The point is, we're talking about tons of deaths in a show that started to thin out characters and drop them almost at random versus one death in a trilogy that just altered the trajectory of the series altogether. It's a big difference to me. By the way, I got to shout out my boy Andrew, who just did that in his debut novel, Sanguinary Song. It was because he chose to whack a particular character in the manner that he did that we ended up with an entire heartfelt, passionate storyline that created all of book 2, which I encourage you all to read. Bottom line, a character's death has to have meaning. Even if you hate that character, it should still fundamentally shift the narrative when we lose that character. If it doesn't, well, then maybe that character wasn't serving a big purpose to begin with. Just a little food for thought. Lesson 2, which is also principle number 2. A character's death has to happen at the right time. Now, this one was really tripping me up. One of my beta readers and collaborators at OTP stated in his review that a particular character's death just seemed to happen too early. He felt attached to the character because of the emotional support that character provided the protagonist, and he surmised that the character should stick around a little longer just to let that relationship grow enough for the death to be truly impactful. And when I read that section back, even though I was so passionate about the way I wanted to do things before, I noticed that the scenes following the death were so focused on other things that it really just kind of got swept under the rug. And what good is that? If you love a character, you at least want to be paid the respect to spend a minute mourning that character when they go. One of my favorite Harry Potter chapters of all time is near the end of book 5 when he's tearing apart Dumbledore's office in a rage, just releasing this hemorrhaging grief that he feels over the shocking death that we just read. It wasn't nothing to him, and because we got a whole chapter to process it and watch him react, it wasn't nothing to us either. So I've definitely learned that timing a big scene, especially a character's death scene, can be essential. Even if you're not outlining the story, you should consider if doing what you're currently doing is going to impact the story in a way that you envision. If you think it's underwhelming, well, it's definitely going to be underwhelming to the reader. We'll be right back in just a moment. Stick around. My debut novel is Barker's Rules, a suspense thriller pitting teen Melanie Greer against the superhuman serial murderer Justin Barker. Melanie Greer is kidnapped by a traveling serial killer and brought to the chilling ghost town of Neuheim, Washington. Suddenly thrust into a desperate fight for survival, Melanie struggles to contend with Justin Barker's three rules and three chances to break them. Melanie can fight or run. Will this monster own her for the rest of her life? You have to read Barker's Rules to find out. The Children of Arc is a drama of demon slaying. It tells the tale of Richard Renovon, a man struggling to survive a dismal post apocalyptic society in the surviving town of Arc. When mankind's predator attacks Arc for the first time, Richard learns that he and he alone possesses a weapon powerful enough to destroy these invaders. Richard must overcome his fear and regret, or else his inner demons will tear him down as Arc burns. If you buy Children of Arc from me at a live event this fall season, you'll get a free short story with it. It's called Deal's End. Deal's End is the riveting story of Eric Diggs, a junior criminal who signs on to a job with an unexpected, devastating cost and makes a split decision that may just cost him his life. Eric is surrounded on all sides by the worst the criminal underworld has to offer: a torturer who leads a double life, a cunning murderer with a nasty temper, and a shadowy client that animates all parties. Will Eric be able to escape with his life, or will this last deal be his end? And now back to our topic at hand. Lesson number 3. This one is really important. It's kind of the main event. A character's death should always fit that character. So, how should a character die? This goes all the way back to the Disney films I used to watch as a kid. In The Lion King, Mufasa is killed when Simba is tricked by his old uncle Scar into landing himself in the middle of a wildebeest stampede. Mufasa bravely rushes into the stampede to rescue his son and ends up in the crosshairs of Scar, who coldly sends him over a cliff into his death. When Simba grows up and confronts his uncle, Scar blames it all on the hyenas, saying it was their fault, their idea. Simba, not wanting to be like his uncle, ultimately lets him off easy. But Scar is surrounded by the hyenas he betrayed, and as he attempts to talk his way out of it, he is set upon and dies a much, much more gruesome death than Mufasa did. You know what they say, a coward dies 1,000 times. In scenes like this, we're not just watching a character's life end. We're watching an idea take shape and come to fruition. A hero dies a hero's death, and a coward dies 1,000 deaths, disgraced and brought to their lowest point before the final moment. In Harry Potter, we see an angelicized Dumbledore counsel Harry on never pitying the dead, but the living and those who live without love, while a horrifically shriveled and maimed incarnation of Voldemort suffers for all eternity. In Martin's writing, Good people do die gruesome deaths, but they're not being punished for being good. Often, the noble get punished for expecting the bad, crooked people to have their standards. The avenging, warring sons and daughters of these noblemen get punished for making terrible military strategy decisions in the middle of a cutthroat war. The curious and unfettered imaginations get punished for entering places they should not have entered. And when it comes to the guilty getting what they finally deserve, they die on the toilet, shot by the sons they should have treated better, or choking on poison sipped from their own glass of the finest wine. See, it doesn't matter the genre, the style, the anything. When a character dies, it should in some way reflect who they were and where their choices have brought them. That way, you're not just killing a character for the sake of killing a character, which is how I felt watching Prince Duran go. This expert tactician in the books now killed because why? Because he made the mistake of trusting his brother's wife, which a smart guy like him probably shouldn't have done anyway. Deaths that don't make sense just leave a bad taste in a consumer's mouth. And that's something I think I was missing myself when I attempted early to kill two main characters. I think I hadn't really established the theme and message of each story enough to really bring these two characters to a conclusion that would make the readers go, wow, that was really hard to read through, but I can totally get how it serves the story. That's the goal. Everything that happens in a story should somehow enhance its ideas and allow those ideas to take full bloom in the minds and hearts of your readers. Knights, Pen Night Radio is dedicated to bringing you content that is both entertaining and educational. We share personal and business experience to help you figure out how to tackle the most puzzling issues in your craft, slay the demons that are holding you down, and turn that blank page into a full page. Thank you for listening. We'll be back shortly with a special interview in our second segment, Drop a Line.
Rivers and streams, plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket.